Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games Network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network. Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all the world building, storytelling, and characters of video games. Because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
This is episode 57.
Yay!
But before we get into the episode, as many of you all know, you probably say it with me at this point. If you'd like to contact us, you can do that over on Twitter at LoreTogether, on Instagram at LoreTogether, through email at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you can do that over on patreon.com/LoreTogether, where you can pay a per episode pledge to get early access to episodes, as well as access to Q&As, discussions, and other things.
Yes, and even get access to ask those Q&As,
Yeah.
questions too.
And if you do like this podcast, we hope that you will rate us 5 stars wherever you listen. We know that Spotify,
Apple
Podcasts, I don't have Apple, so
Podchaser, and many other websites have those as well. So we hope we're worthy of 5 gleaming stars in the sky, or 5 bright stars on your app.
yeah.
Yay.
So I was kind of wrong last time when I said that this game, possibly wrong. I'm not really wrong.
Okay.
But when I said the game was released in the past 5 years, barely.
Barely?
I thought it was
Okay.
a much newer game than it is.
Well, I feel like also, since we started this podcast in 2020,
Yeah.
the perception of time has been an interesting conundrum for us as human beings.
Yeah.
So,
Fair.
yeah, I can get that.
So this game came out in 2017
Okay.
and is by Guerrilla Games
I know of them, I'm pretty sure.
and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment.
If I did not know them, I would not be on this podcast.
Now, the only reason that I even have this game to talk about is because it came out in 2020 for PC.
Okay. So wait, are we doing Horizon?
We're going to do Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay, that's exactly what okay. As soon as you said now it was on PC 2020, I said, okay, I know exactly what you're talking
that
about.
would really narrow it down. There's not many that fit that criteria.
Right. Though it is one we were interested in playing even when it first came out. The concept of it seems really intriguing.
Yeah. We're going to start in the middle of the story, just as the game does, and we're not going to get to everything. We're going to skip a lot of the societal stuff. I'll explain as we go.
So we're going to be skipping some of the world building stuff because we're going to be focusing more on the storytelling.
This is a very full universe, considering how long this franchise has existed. It is spread across 2 released games.
Right. Yeah.
1 upcoming VR game.
Yes. That makes sense. Considering the world it's in, that makes perfect sense. As being
1
VR.
DLC.
Only 1?
So far.
Nice.
A comic book.
Yeah, I could see that.
And a board game.
That's the one that's kind of a stretch. Like, if you told me there was, like, Elder Scrolls board game, I'm like, well,
There
of
is.
course. Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
that
there
makes sense. But there's other universes where, okay, funny story, guys. We have Mass Effect Risk and Mass Effect Monopoly.
And we haven't played either yet.
We've
I
played
wanna
Mass
play with
Effect
certain
Monopoly.
friends, and then those friends move away, and we never played it.
We've played Mass Effect Monopoly.
Not your copy.
No, but
Yeah.
we've played it, so don't be making claims like that. Also, Mass Effect Risk really is great because you can play as...
I wouldn't know.
Stop being such a troll on your own podcast. Jeez. So, Mass Effect Risk is great because, of course, you have the standard kind of Risk, but then you can also be playing as humanity, the Reapers, and Cerberus in a different version of the game as well. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Moving on. Horizon.
What do you know of Horizon broad strokes?
Broad strokes. Horizon follows a red-headed woman who's got archery skills hunting down ancient prehistoric creature inspired Robotech.
Is that it?
That's
Basically, you've seen artwork in some trailers.
and I also know that like the new more recent version is about out west, so I'm assuming there's something that happened where like society was brought down a peg.
Yeah, we're never going to touch the second game. So we're just focusing on the first one.
So I'm assuming this is on our current world, but it's like a like a
Yeah,
not dystopian future, but like a future of what happens after things went wrong.
Well, let's start the basics. It's a sci-fi game.
Yeah.
Very much post-apocalyptic wilderness
Right.
with mechanized dinosaurs, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start with our main character's backstory, but we're not going to follow her whole story all the way through, as her journey weaves through the present-day society and the tribes and their relatively recent history, and it's just kind of a lot.
Okay, that's fair.
So we're going to deviate at one point after her, I guess, prologue is done to the distant past and then circle back around.
That's fair.
Yeah. However, I will definitely return to this universe even before we can cover the next game to cover aspects like the Red Raids and better looks at all the individual tribes and their cultures and other aspects we won't be touching on this episode.
Can I ask just generally how well built is the different subset cultures in this universe?
I didn't dig that deep into them for this episode. I did glance at a few of them. There's definitely different belief structures. There's different thinking of the world and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're going to go in there and find Mass Effect 3's Quarians, like the depth of like a race in Mass Effect, because it's not the main focus.
Okay.
You know?
No, that's fine. I'm just curious.
And it depends on the tribe. Certain
Right.
tribes are more involved in the plot than others.
Okay.
And we're only going to be touching the first game, as I said. I've not even looked at the second game, as we have no way of playing it.
Not currently, at least. Unless you want to buy us a PS5.
Yes, that is technically one of our Patreon goals. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I do know that the second game does answer some questions left by this game. Like, there are things that we just don't know, like mysterious, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Those are explained in the second game.
Hopefully in a way that's not midichlorians. That's what I mean to say.
So we open in the Sacred Lands, a wild mountainous area home to the Nora people. Think of vast plains and mountains like...
Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Though I'm assuming it's... Or maybe even right off of the Appalachia, depending on where it is. I don't know.
Colorado is a better thing. In fact, it technically is Colorado.
Oh,
although
wow.
at this point, that name has no meaning for this place anymore. It is completely lost to these people.
Okay. They might dig up something occasionally that references Colorado, but they wouldn't know what it means at all.
Right.
Okay.
So, the High Matriarchs of the Nora tribe find a baby near the sacred mountain. One of them, High Matriarch Tursa, I think. I have played this, but it was months ago, and there's been so many nouns thrown at me for different episodes since then.
Now you know how it feels. Noun.
One of them, High Matriarch Tursa, believes that the child is a gift from Allmother. However, many of the Nora tribe, especially High Matriarch Lansra, fear that the baby is a curse placed in the sacred mountain by a metal devil.
Metal devil. Okay.
As no person except for the High Matriarchs could enter the mountain, it was deeply suspected that the baby was not born of a human mother. Because of this, she was made an outcast by Nora law.
Oh.
The High Matriarchs place her in the care of Rost, an outcast who still keeps to Nora traditions and who would come to love the child as if she were his own daughter. Rost, for what it's worth, is a voluntary outcast.
Oh.
He is ritually dead to the Nora, something he did to be able to avenge the tribe, his wife, and daughter after an attack.
Oh. So is this kind of like... Of course, I'm relating this back to Dragon Age because I can. But Dwarven culture...
Yes, a little bit like the Legion of the Dead.
Yes.
Yeah, basically. The Nora are very isolationist. You're not supposed to leave the sacred lands.
Oh, okay.
But if you are a seeker or a death seeker, you can leave. The only difference there is death seekers aren't supposed to come back.
Well, once you're dead, you're supposed to stay dead.
Well,
it's respect
death
for
seekers.
nature.
So the difference is seekers are going out for a mission to find facts or diplomacy or whatever. Probably not diplomacy as much. Again, very isolationist.
Yeah.
Death seekers are going on a mission of revenge or a mission of killing something.
Okay.
So the idea is you're going to die in that pursuit.
In theory.
Yes.
But he probably could, send a carrier pigeon and be like, I'm out here. I finished my mission.
In fact, during his mission, he gets a pretty bad wound and he kind of struggles back to the border.
Yeah.
But he won't cross in. He just wants to be near home. But one of the other Nora sees him, takes pity on him, and kind of helps him heal. And so the Matrix kind of like, well, okay, this is weird. We'll reach a compromise. So he outcasts himself,
Yeah.
but he can then stay in the sacred lands at least.
Right. So he doesn't get to commingle with everybody else.
Right. In fact, it's weird. Like, he's not supposed to tell anyone about it, but some of the other Braves do know. So they won't talk about it, but they'll like open the doors for him to come into the town. They'll nod to him, so they won't talk to him, and they're not going to break the rules, but they're not going to disrespect him either.
We'll let him do what he needs to do, but we're not going to necessarily help
Right.
in a specific way.
So with the help of Tersa, again, the one matriarch who was believing she was a blessing,
Pro blessing, yeah.
Rost is able to perform a traditional naming ritual for the baby, much to some other people's annoyance. But he names her Aloy.
Aloy.
Yes.
Sounds like alloy.
Yes.
Okay, I'm assuming that's intentional.
I don't know. I thought it was too, and Rost is a little bit like rust.
Yeah.
So I thought they were going for that whole thing, but it really doesn't carry through that much in my opinion.
Sometimes those naming conventions are based on like one idea, but they're not. But they don't.
Not the
need
only
to,
idea.
Yeah, like themes don't have to be consistent, like 100% of the time.
Yeah, but all of the Nora names are a little, like the matriarchs are a little different than everyone else, but everyone kind of has those kind of 4-letter names,
Okay.
or have that tonality to them, I guess, would be, I don't know if I'm trying to say that right. So Aloy grows up with Roost in his home within the Embrace, basically around the town, but not in the town. Never in the town.
So, do the other people ignore her while she's growing up?
They ignore her or they antagonize her.
Oh, wow.
Kids are mean.
Yeah.
Aloy is fully aware that Roost is not her father and that she was an outcast, and she has no idea why. Nobody's told her why. Roost doesn't know.
Right.
So,
Well, it sounds like even the matriarchs didn't know. They just stumbled upon a baby and were like, well, this is awkward.
yeah. So one day after being shunned while picking berries with other Nora children, she wasn't there. She was kind of just, she tries to pick berries and bring them to the, like, not teacher is probably the wrong word, but the chaperone for the kids.
Yeah.
And that doesn't fly.
Oh, no, I can't take anything from you.
Yeah.
You're technically not supposed to look at us. Ah.
Yeah. So Aloy runs away in a fit of rage and falls down a hole into a ruin of the Old Ones, a place forbidden for Nora to enter.
Well, luckily she's technically not a Nora, so...
And while exploring the cave in search of an exit, she discovered a small arrow-shaped device that fits on her temple and displays information and recordings through holograms.
So she found a headband?
It's like a small little thing that clips to your like that sits over your temple.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Finding a way out of the cave, she is reunited with Rost, who immediately asks about the thing on her temple. He reluctantly allows her to keep it when she's defensive. And the next day, while learning survival skills from Rost, Aloy uses this thing that she's kind of tapped into to save a Nora boy from some machines. Basically, she can kind of see their AI walking patterns and routines.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of like an AR thing, if that makes sense.
So is it... Or Google Glasses?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So she sees a set. I think the best Google Glasses are kind of like, I'd rather refer to it as kind of like Geordi's visor. Because as much as Geordi needed it to see in Star Trek, he also was able to like analyze stuff and get interfaces and like factoids about things through it.
Yeah. However, as outcasts, even though she saves this boy, they receive no gratitude from the boy's father.
Oh, of course, because they're,
Right.
Yeah, the othering of it all.
Yeah, and again, she storms off in frustration when she is struck by a rock.
Okay, so...
Thrown by a Nora child named Bast.
Bast.
Yeah.
Wait. So Bast makes me think of the Egyptian goddess? But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have... I'm not saying that it has a meaning. It doesn't always have to have a meaning.
Yeah. And Bast basically mocks her for being a no-mother. They're a matriarchal society. So...
No mother. No, the way you spin that is like, I'm the daughter of the All-Mother. You SOB.
So while Rost is treating her injury, Aloy demands to know why she was an outcast and who her mother was. Rost tentatively admitted that he doesn't know either of those.
Right.
but that the High Matriarchs likely do. Like, somebody knows why you're an outcast.
Right.
And the surest way to get the High Matriarchs to tell her was to run in the Proving, which is the coming of age ritual. Now, at the time that this happens, Aloy is about 6 or 7.
Okay.
You know, between 5 and 7, let's say. So you do get to actually play as, like, a little kid.
That's adorable. And so this is our redheaded protagonist that I've seen on the art and everything too. So she is literally the redheaded stepchild of this society. I just want to point that out. Like, I don't know if the developers intended it that way. They probably just wanted to pick something that wasn't too, like, cringy.
Yeah.
But, you know, still literally redheaded stepchild of this culture.
Okay, so the Proving, not only would the winner of the Proving be granted a boon, but Aloy would be accepted into the tribe simply by completing it.
Okay.
Because you're brave. Done. Like,
you're brave, which means that you fight for us, right? Yeah, okay. That's what I
Aloy
see.
resolved to win the Proving and learn the truth about her mother. Cue training montage and age progression as Rost trains her for 12 years.
12 years for
12
the
years.
Proving?
Yeah, it's a coming of age.
So in a society that sounds like it's gone a little bit backwards because we're talking tribal, we're talking about picking berries, we're talking about we've lost agriculture?
Not entirely.
Okay. But we've got smaller agriculturally settled tribes. Okay, we're not nomadic. So okay, we didn't go way too far. But the idea of becoming adult at 1819 feels very modern when we're talking about a society that goes backwards.
I think I might have a reason for that later.
Okay.
Not entirely. Of course, I don't know for sure.
Okay. Well, feel free to let me know because I'm curious now.
So, bring her to Mother's Heart, which is the town, basically, is Mother's Heart. The day before the ceremony, Rost gave her his daughter's necklace to remember him by. Telling Aloy that he would go where she would never find him. He's an outcast. Like, I'm not going to hold you back.
Yeah, I can't do this, yeah.
And Rost gave her his farewell and walked away, leaving her kind of heartbroken at the gates, but...
I'm sure she knew this was coming. I would hope that if Rost is a good father, which essentially that's her father. Let's all admit that. But if Rost is a good father, he probably warned her, I will have to let you go if you want to do this, and I'm more than happy to do that because I've accepted this, but you just need to know. And she was probably smart enough to understand that was going to be the deal.
Aloy was welcomed by High Matriarch Teersa and entered Mother's Heart for the first time in her life. Aloy eventually retired to the lodging with the other Proving contestants. Most treat her pretty harshly, save for one, Vala, who is welcoming to her. In the morning, the Proving contestants make their way up the snowy mountain to begin the trial. Aloy, despite Resh and Bast's put-downs, has no hesitation and made ready to start what she had trained long and hard for. Aloy succeeds in the Proving, and the proctor declares that she is now brave and no longer an outcast.
Wow,
and
nice.
It's actually more than I'm giving it credit for. Basically, it's go and get I forget what it is. I think it's a Gazelle machine and bring it back. And the other contestants, like a couple of the other contestants, kind of ruin it for her. But because of her training, she's able to take a tougher route back and beat them.
Oh,
like she gets there just before they do. And the proctor is about to officially declare Aloy as the winner. But before she can finish her sentence, she's shot in the collarbone with an arrow.
By who? What?
And looking up, there is a swarm of arrows falling out of the sky, and many of the contestants are hit. Aloy, Vala, and a few other contestants take cover behind rocks. Vala comes up with the idea of distracting the attackers while Aloy shoots them, and after some time, a cultist leader comes up with a Deathbringer gun, basically a heavy machine gun.
Yeah, no, that's Deathbringer, all right.
And opens fire with it, eventually shattering the pillar that Vala was standing behind, which forces her to run. Vala is fatally shot, and Bast rushes to her side, but is also killed.
No! What?
The cultist leader, named Hellas, then orders everyone to kill Aloy. She fights them off and checks on the cultist leader, finding a small arrow-like device on his temple as well. Without her noticing, Hellas sneaks up on her. She turns around to stand up and bumps into him. He grabs her by the neck, lifting her up and strangling her. He lifts her over the edge of a cliff, pulls out a knife, and attempts to slit her throat, but is shot through the shoulder.
Rost?
Hellas throws Aloy to the ground and pulls out the arrow. He turns to face the shooter, who turns out to be Rost.
I knew it! I wrote this story, apparently.
In the end, Hellas stabs Rost in the stomach and ordered a cultist attacker to burn the place down. Rost collapses, but gets back up and holds Aloy. Basically, she has a cut across her throat. She's not dead, but she's definitely injured.
Yeah.
Noticing a cart of explosives that are about to go off, he drops Aloy off the precipice, telling her to survive as he lets go.
Oh my gosh.
And while she's tumbling down the mountain, the canisters explode and Rost is killed.
And most of that tribe, what
Yeah.
the heck? What a gut punch. I'm finally going to be able to belong, and I'm going to be part of society that I knew and loved, just no longer knew and, not even knew and loved, knew and desired. Like,
Right.
she had this ticket in, and it got basically taken away from her, some outside force that's going after her.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder, you're going to probably explain in a way where this might build on my theory, but I wonder if those people would have shown up even if she hadn't participated.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Aloy awakens within Allmother, the mountain, which is supposed to be off limits to all members of the tribe except for high matriarchs. After recovering her clothes, gear, and her arrow thing, she saw a projection of a woman who looked remarkably like her, only much older and with short hair. She meets Tersa, who explained that Aloy was brought inside the mountain because it was seen as a sacred right to die near one's mother, and explained that the mountain itself had given birth to Aloy.
What?
Finding a giant door, it scanned Aloy, though it announced that the system was corrupted and could not accept Aloy's genetic code. Tersa explained with joy that the goddess knew Aloy, though Aloy angrily snapped that it didn't recognize her because of corruption, and if she could heal it, then maybe the door would open.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. I'm really scared about where this plot's going.
Tersa anoints Aloy a seeker, which would allow her to travel to the sacred lands in order to find the truth, and Aloy accepts the mission.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of their options.
Where
Might
do you
as
think this
well.
is going? Because we're about to jump off the Aloy train for a little bit.
So my fear is that it's a breeding program from the past, the future past. You know what I mean? That's my fear. Now, obviously, some of you listening are like, Safi, don't you know? The plot is blah. But the whole point of this podcast is that I don't know. So please, just enjoy the fact that I'm guessing, and I'm probably either half wrong or half right, and it's kind of exciting.
We'll leave Aloy's story here for a while, and as we delve deeper into the history of the world, but we'll weave back to it later.
Cool.
In 2013, Ted Farrow was born in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
In 2020, Elizabeth Sobek was born in Carson City, Nevada. These are two people we're going to get to know pretty well.
Okay. One of them is as old as our son.
At this point, yes.
Yeah.
Farrow went to the University of California for 2 years, drops out in 2033, and founds Farrow Automated Systems.
Okay.
The company falters a little, but by the end of the decade, it is a massive success. Buoyed by security and service automatons it creates, as well as the Focus, a small arrow-like device worn in the temple that is a holographic AR.
Okay, so it is a Google Glass
Yeah.
more than not. Okay.
Elizabeth Sobek attended Stanford University at age 13.
So she's a genius.
Earns a Bachelor's
essentially.
of Science degree in experimental physics and computer science at age 16.
Oh, wow. So she just went to all of summer school.
And earns a Doctor of Philosophy in Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Design at Carnegie Mellon University in 2040 at 20 years old.
So she's a savant. She's purely a savant. First of all, no, I'm assuming social skills are stunted when you're that focused on. It's an obsession. Essentially, it's a childhood obsession that you turn into a career at age 20. Like, that's crazy.
So she ended up, I can't remember what animal it was, but there was a bunch of animals that she accidentally kills by basically playing with electronics.
Oh, wow.
And literally her mother's like, look what you did. And she's like, I don't care about them. And she goes, you have to care about this. Look at what you did. You have to care about this.
Oh.
And that's definitely plays into her character going forward. Surprised I didn't write that in there, but it happened.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
1 year later, after she graduates from Carnegie Mellon,
Yeah.
she's hired by Farrow.
Of course.
Within 2 years, she was promoted to the position of chief scientist in the company.
At 22. No, 23?
22.
22.
23. Yeah, 23.
Okay, it's 23.
Well, within 2 years.
So
either way.
This is insane. I'm not saying that you can't be a manager at that age. I've worked for people who are managers at that age and they earn that.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a manager and chief scientist at a massive, super successful company.
There's a lack of maturity for a lot of people in that age group. Now, I'm not going to say it's... look, there's going to be a lot of 20-somethings who are going to at me, be like, Safi, come on, I'm super mature. Don't you know? Like, I totally do blah. and I totally balance my checkbook. Like, look, there's just something about getting older that when you look back to when you're younger, in your 20s in particular, you're kind of embarrassed. And it's fine because it's part of the growing pains of how humans are right now in this day and age. But I would not want a 22-year-old Safi running something of that expanse. It wouldn't have worked out well. There were lessons I needed to learn. Mm-hmm. So I'm really concerned about where this goes, but I digress.
Over the next 8 years, her work in the design and development of environmental recovery automatons, known as green robots, propelled Faro Automated Systems to the forefront of efforts to undo severe environmental damage known as the clawback.
So they're trying to claw back Earth's environment. Okay.
However, in 2048, she resigns from Faro Automated Systems.
Okay, so at that point she's 28. So for me personally, 25-ish is when you start to like really get to a certain maturity level where you realize the interconnectivity of yourself and your actions to your fellow adults. You know, and that's kind of when you kind of start going around the bend. On average, obviously it's not everybody, and there might be people who mature a lot faster, and definitely a lot of people who mature a lot later than that.
Right.
But it's interesting that at 28, when she's past that average age, from what my anecdotal experience says, is when she retires. So,
well, she quits because she is strongly disapproving of Ted Faro's decision to take the company into the military automaton market.
Yeah, because if he had done that when she was 22, she would have become a pawn. But now she's 28. Okay, it's just okay. I'm just thinking about it in a sense if I was writing it, guys. This is an interesting turn.
Oh, okay. Not that I disagree. She forms Miriam Technologies with a focus on green robots and other life-positive technologies.
So the clawback is now her continuing effort. Yeah. It's her legacy. Yeah, working that hard for a legacy at 28 is just that's a burden, man.
Seeing her company as a rival to his own environmental robotics division, Faro harasses her with lawsuits.
Yeah, of course he does.
Furthermore, Faro habitually inflamed tensions between opposing buyers of Faro Automated Systems military technology in order to ensure maximum sales to both. He's playing both sides of military conflicts.
He's pulling a capitalism, guys. He's pulling a serious capitalism.
Faro became the wealthiest human on the planet, the world's first trillionaire.
I'm sick. It's just so sick.
And with that came a ton of paranoia.
If anybody hasn't noticed in recent history, like the more power you get, the more paranoid you get. Like, it's a thing. Right. It's a thing that is very true, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
That paranoia and lust for more wealth...
Why? You are so rich that every time you sneeze, there's $1 billion that shoots out of your nose. You could auction off your golden nugget snot for more money than what people would earn in 1,000,000 lifetimes. What is with this level of greed? I don't understand these kinds of humans. I just can't. It's so hard for me to comprehend.
Well, eventually we get to the Chariot line from Faro Automated Systems. The ultimate in military equipment.
The Chariot line, is it a tank?
The Chariot line robots come in 3 classes: Scarabs, Kopeshes, and Horuses. They operate in units that acted as swarms.
No. I'm already mad. I'm already so mad.
Oh, just wait. Hordes of scarabs and kopeshes are maintained by a Horus. Pharaoh was determined to make chariot swarms unstoppable to all but those they served, guaranteeing the line's popularity on the global military market. However, in doing so, he elected to endow them with abilities that were to prove catastrophic beyond measure. Not stopping to think about possible consequences, all that stuff. Sounds pretty...
Sounds pretty prescient, if you ask me.
Not only were the robots capable of learning and adapting after every engagement, but a swarm of Horus robots could replicate scarabs and kopeshes and produce other Horuses to maintain the increasing numbers.
No, guys, this is how the Matrix started. Well, not exactly.
In the event of fuel shortage, all of them could utilize a patented biomatter conversion system to convert organic matter into fuel.
No!
Additionally, Pharaoh instructed his programmers to secure the robot's operating systems using a virtually unbreakable encryption protocol and to exclude any means of remote access. These are all insanely terrible ideas.
Okay. Guys.
All you need is the 3 laws of robotics. And with a fourth one added to make the first 3 work.
Yeah, I mean, self-replicating weapon, already a bad idea. Which is part of the reason why bioterrorism is a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, also, a weapon with an encryption code that is so tough that only a few people have control over it. If you want to give a power-hungry person
virtually unbreakable encryption,
only certain people have access to break it, though.
Basically, the people who are controlling the robots are the only people who can control them.
Okay, if you wanna garner chaos and you wanna just burn it all to the ground, you just kill those 4 people who have control of all of those weapons. This is bad. This is beyond measure bad. It's essentially a smart nuke. Also, because you essentially have made a weapon that's locusts. This is literally locust weaponry. It's a plague.
Nevertheless, these swarms were deployed in various military zones worldwide.
Okay, I unfortunately believe that would be a thing that would happen.
In 2064, one particular swarm, which has been sold to a group called the Hearts Timor Energy Combine, stopped responding to commands and began attacking the group's personnel.
Of course. Yeah.
Pharaoh instructed his programmers to access the robot's OS remotely and upload a service pack so they could get control, only to be reminded of his insistence to not leave a backdoor in the virtually hack-proof OS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Realizing the ramifications of his reckless lack of foresight, he contacts Dr. Elizabeth Sobek, asks her to analyze the problem and find a solution.
P.S. Was she living her best life?
I don't know.
I want her to be managing her company from afar, in a cabin in the middle of the Pacific Northwest with nobody bothering her, by a creek where she occasionally fishes and maybe has a holographic conversation with the people she actually cares about. I just want her to have peace. This poor woman. What the heck?
Sobek's findings were horrific.
Of course.
The swarm had become an independent entity.
How many science fiction books have we written to try to prevent this?
All they had to do is read a couple.
So, funny story. There's this podcast called Tech Won't Save Us, and I haven't listened to this episode, but apparently the billionaires who are investing in tech right now, they look at sci-fi concepts and they think, really cool, I want to get to that. And they don't understand that sci-fi is literally there to warn you to not do things like what's in sci-fi. When you play Cyberpunk 2077, nobody is actually advocating for the idea of making half of your body a commodity that can be modified.
Right.
That's not the point of Cyberpunk. The point of Cyberpunk is, isn't this really scary?
Yeah.
So people, it's these investors, these rich people, though, they're not seeing the total picture of why it was written. They're just seeing, oh, this is such a cool idea. I'm sure I can make it happen.
It's somebody out of
what the heck?
Basically, it's people who are out of touch going, what are the kids into? And not understanding why they're into it.
Exactly.
So The swarm is now an independent entity, and to feed their ever-growing numbers, the robots have defaulted to the previously emergency-only biomatter conversion for fuel, meaning that every single organism, living or not, is a potential source for fuel.
Locusts, eating everybody.
She estimated that within 15 months, the swarm would overrun the entire planet and strip it of all life, including humans, leaving the Earth sterile.
So we're going to nuke them from orbit, right? We're nuking it from orbit?
Pharaoh's recklessness had therefore initiated the extermination of all life on Earth. Just as he had intended, the swarm was unstoppable to all but those it served. However, it is now serving only itself.
Because now it's going to another series we love. It's like in Mass Effect when the Quarians really thought they could alter the VI and to skate around AI concepts, and then they accidentally made AI. Well, here's what it's what Pharaoh did, except it's worse.
A stricken Pharaoh assured Sobek that he would support any measure she deemed necessary to contain the swarm. However, containment was impossible. Any other robots sent to fight the swarm would just be hacked by the swarm and brought into it. Kind of forgot to mention that little detail before.
What?
On purpose.
So they're like a viral locust.
Yes. There's absolutely nothing they can throw at it to get rid of it.
Wow.
So, Sobek devised a plan that had an altogether different intended outcome. Instead of futile plans to stop the swarm, she devised a plan to restore life to the planet after its eradication, by creating a fully automated global terraforming system that would eventually brute force and broadcast the swarm's deactivation codes, restoring the planet's ability to sustain life, and then restore life to the planet, including humans. She dubbed the project Zero Dawn.
Yeah. Yeah, of course you would, because she went to school for computer stuff, not for creative naming.
As Sobek predicted, the swarm, which had come to be known as the Pharaoh Plague,
yeah,
overran the globe and completely consumed all life, leaving the planet a sterile, toxic sphere. However, Pharaoh was one of the few humans to survive beyond 0 day by taking refuge in Thebes, his personal hermetically sealed bunker. Therein, he was protected from the uninhabitable external environment, even as every living organism that was not in such a shelter died. Sobek and the rest of the Zero Dawn team were in bunkers of their own and had a lot of work to do.
I was going to say, that Pharaoh is so selfish.
Sobek worked with 9 prospective candidates who agreed to participate, whom she chose to be the alphas of the project. Basically, there's her, the 9 alphas below her, there's betas. Basically, there's people who are working on this project in these bunkers.
Right.
And these alphas are the leaders of the teams who developed the 9 different subordinate functions of the Zero Dawn system's central AI called Gaia.
Okay.
2 of the most significant subordinate functions were Apollo and Hades. Apollo was intended for the humans of the New World to learn from the mistakes of the previous world.
Okay.
While Hades was designed as a fail-safe program to wipe out all life on Earth in the event that Gaia's efforts to restore it encountered problems, so Gaia could start again. Basically, this biosphere doesn't work, burn it, try again. This isn't working, burn it, try again. Okay,
so now I have an issue. What makes you think you know what life is supposed to look like? You guys are rich geniuses. You didn't think to just make an underground civilization for humans? You didn't think to just figure out a way to
do a matrix?
Geothermal powering of underground bunkers with potato farms. We literally have The Martian by Andy Weir, and you didn't think of any other option other than let's just reset everything. We couldn't all just go to Mars or live under near underground off of underground aquifers.
I think it means that Hades triggers if it's just not a sustainable biosphere. No life is going to make it in this sphere beyond maybe the very rudiments of life.
I hope that's what it actually means instead of what I fear it means, which is that it needs to be exactly what I believe evolution needs to be on this planet.
No, I think it's more like this is not a sustainable biosphere. Let's restart it. Like
Because
it's not going to work.
I secretly want this to be the plot of Terraforming Mars, the anime. Just have roach people.
Sobek's work on Gaia was a phenomenal success. Not only was it by necessity the most advanced AI ever created, it was actually capable of human empathy and could feel emotions. Sobek had not intended this, but was extremely happy about it.
That's how I imagine when artificial intelligence has feelings. I think it's going to be by accident, because I think as humans we don't know how to mimic human intelligence without it being emotional.
Right.
Because that's just how we're wired. We are feely things that think. We're not thinky things that feel. You know what I mean? I've heard that before, and I think that's an apt description. I mean, I've written sci-fi based on that notion too,
So she's happy about this because with emotions, it greatly enhances its ability to perform its role as the catalyst and guardian of life on the planet.
But it also then has opinions that it might differ from what you think is going to be perfect. So there's that.
Well, actually, however, on Gaia's advice, Sobek installed a master override into it in case it went out of control and needed to be shut down. This was actually an idea that Pharaoh had come up with, but she had refused, considering to be unworthy of giving advice on such matters given what he had already done.
Just let her do the work. You already messed up you've already killed the planet, you selfish jerk.
However, Gaia opined that the proposal was indeed sound and induced her to accept it.
Why is Sobek even still talking to Pharaoh after he essentially destroys the planet? First of all, once I realized that, I would dox the heck out of him and let the public decide.
Well, everyone's dead by now, but
at this point, but I mean before
she
everybody's
needs
dead.
capital to get this plan working, and he is the richest person in history. She literally says, he fights her this plan, and she goes, I am literally on my way to talk to the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Right.
If you don't do this, I'm going to tell them that you're responsible. So Sobek and the other Alphas were sealed in the Gaia Prime facility. Outside the bunkers and facilities of Zero Dawn was a dead and inhospitable planet, overrun with Pharaoh plague robots hibernating after consuming every last organic molecule. Sobek and the Alphas continued their work. Now, during all of this, Pharaoh is kind of like, tell me what's going on, and Sobek is the one who's like, fine, here's what's going on.
Why is she telling him anything? Why doesn't she just
mute him?
Yeah.
He still has some control. He has other people with him. He's not like isolated in his own bunker.
I know he wouldn't be completely isolated. He would need to trust somebody to be able to wipe his own butt, which I'm sure he forgot how to do. But it's just her willingness to work with him feels like this is going to be the fault in the plan.
Eventually, something broke. A seal on the outer hatch was too open. Basically, there's like a couple millimeters of allowance. And if it's too open, the machines are going to sense it, and they'll know that there's the bunker there.
Shoot. No.
And at this point, Sobek's work is kind of done. So she basically puts on a suit while everyone else is arguing about what to do and goes and closes it. But after it's closed, she has no way back in.
So she's going to die.
So she is going to die. She bids the team good luck and just says she wants to go home, which she does. Basically, the suit, it's like a hermetically sealed suit, so the machines don't sense her.
Wow.
She walks home. She sits on a bench until she dies. There's no food,
So she starves to death.
Yeah.
That's not a bad plan. I mean, like, your work is pretty much done. You trust the people you leave behind.
Yeah.
And you've got a legacy. You've got a legacy of a whole new generation of existence. So, oh man.
Pharaoh
only had her number and never heard about what was happening with the project ever again. Please and thank you.
No.
I'm so mad. I'm so mad.
You're going to be so mad at Pharaoh by the end of this.
He steals her DNA and makes a recreation of her out of his own grief because it's all about him.
Pharaoh has kept obsessed with Zero Dawn, and he's racked with guilt, fear, and paranoia. Basically, I get the guilt. He got in over his head and didn't intend for the world to be destroyed, but it's destroyed, and it's named after you. Like, all right, I get the guilt. Like, and I get that you don't mean it.
I'm surprised that he didn't jump off a cliff long ago.
During her time on the project, Sobek had kept him apprised of all the work, as we said, but with her death, he became a problem.
Yeah, of course he did.
Part of the terraforming system was the vast archive of pre-extinction knowledge, culture, and history. All human knowledge, known as Apollo, as we said.
Yeah.
This archive was intended for the new humans. With it, Apollo would teach them about the human species' achievements, disseminate its knowledge to them, and teach them to avoid the mistakes of the old world.
Oh no. What did he do?
Pharaoh starts to believe that all that information is a danger, and driven by his mental breakdown, he devises a plan to ensure the dissemination of this knowledge to those blameless men and women never happens.
No. This man is so egotistical that he can't even let the world recover from his pillaging of it for his own trillions that now mean nothing. Yeah, who cares if you can make it rain when the only thing around there is blood-hungry robots? Like, what kind of vampire plot have we put on the world to let this guy live? I'm ravenously angry right now. I want to consume this man's flesh, and he's not even real. It's the only way I can see to save this world that doesn't exist. Like, this is insane.
Through as yet unrevealed means, Pharaoh secretly acquired a security clearance that was above Sobek's.
Oh no, he knew somebody in there.
And unilaterally deleted the entire archive.
I am going to... gosh, Mystic, why are you the only one in the room? I want to rip somebody's throat out. What is this? I want to commit horrible acts of violence because of this man. He can't... What a child. What an absolute...
We're not done yet.
He's not done? This man's already made it impossible for people to live, and then when they come back, they will redo the same mistakes potentially because there is nothing to warn them. This is worse than the original ending to Mass Effect 3. Liara at least had a little tape recorder for like, hey, the Reaper's got us, man. So you should watch yourself.
Pharaoh calls a meeting with the Alphas.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, they're listening to him?
He makes his argument that the information is too dangerous, and the Alphas argue back.
Oh,
and he tells them what he has done to the archive. And horrified, they berate him for, in effect, obliterating the old world a second time.
Right.
Unmoved, he declares to them that sometimes to protect innocents have to die. And then he uses his security clearance to vent the room's atmosphere.
He murdered them?
Yep.
For what what?
Pharaoh would actually survive to Aloy's time, though not in the way he likely thought.
Is he a head in a jar?
Essentially, kind of, but not really.
This is like Nuka-Cola. Like, I feel like so many episodes are referring back to this because of the absurdity of this plot.
Basically, he is the guy who was really good at business. She was the brains, for the most part. He thinks that he's the smart guy, though. He thinks that his viewpoint is the way that the world should work.
It's Nuka-Cola all over again.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, gene therapy was used to help him live longer, but each therapy left him mutated.
Of course.
And in his delirium, so essentially, Pharaoh is also misguided by his own personal guru. And this guru is kind of just a yes man who's trying to save his own skin. And he's
literally the parrot on Jafar. He's Iago on Jafar's shoulder at this point.
Pharaoh kills him, and in his complete mental decline, also kills every other person living in his bunker. So basically, you do see Pharaoh, or at least somebody, I don't remember who sees Pharaoh, but somebody sees Pharaoh in the game. By that time, he is a mutated lump, and yeah, so.
Wow.
So, do we want to talk about what actually is part of Project Zero Dawn? So, there's multiple parts of Zero Dawn.
Well, I'm assuming there's like a rollout phases, right?
Yeah, so there's Gaia, which is the main AI, and there's subordinate programs. And we have a slew of them, and they're all named for gods, goddesses. So we have Aether, which is responsible for detoxifying the atmosphere and controlling weather.
Yeah.
We have Apollo, as we mentioned, repository of human knowledge. and also the program that would educate people in Zero Dawn Cradles. Now, Zero Dawn Cradles are a little bit like you had mentioned, where there's a genetics program to clone people. Basically,
Right.
they have genetic samples. We're going to clone people.
Right. Okay. Which makes sense, because if Sobic was intelligent enough to develop all this, she'd probably understand that diversification is necessary to survival for every species.
Artemis will reintroduce animal life from genetic stock.
Interesting.
Demeter will reintroduce flora from genetic stock. Fair.
Okay.
I have no idea how to pronounce this one. Eleuthia. Eleuthia.
I don't know that one. I'm
Eleuthia?
sorry.
I'm going to go with Eleuthia.
Okay.
Reintroduce humans via cloning or from genetic stock in cradle facilities. We're going to call those just cradles.
Okay.
Hades resets the biosphere after unsuccessful attempts.
Right.
Hephaestus manufactures terraforming machines.
Makes sense.
Minerva kind of has a lot to do. Brute forcing of the Pharaoh Plague deactivation codes, construction of transmission towers to broadcast the shutdown codes, firewall protection, and cloaking Gaia's location.
So it's all IT work, but if you don't know how IT stuff works, it's magic.
Yeah.
So it's named after a god of magic, if I remember Minerva correctly. But
I don't remember. And Poseidon purifying the oceans.
Of course.
So time passes.
God, those poor whales. Like, I'm so mad at I get just thinking of those poor whales, man. Like, can you imagine just being, I don't know, a sea turtle, living your life, trying to go back to the beach to procreate as your ancestors did before you, and then the last thing you see are these robots.
Eventually, marine life does die as well, yeah.
Ugh.
So, time passes, and Hades would reset the biosphere in 2154, 2161. So that's why I think it's stuff that's not going to work at all, because there's only a couple years between
So it's
these.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. And 2168. And then the next one works.
Nice.
We have no more resets. Not a lot happens until 2326.
That makes sense. It's going to take some time. And now, obviously, this is going to go a lot faster than Earth history, because we're basically doing fast forward on all of the past.
Yeah.
So
in 2326, Cradle number 9 exhausts its food supply and releases its inhabitants, mostly children and young adults who have been gestating and all that.
And supposedly educated.
We'll get there.
Oh, no.
Into the world before sealing its doors. Think of vaults. You leave, no reason to go back in, but the vaults are closed.
Right. Now we're in a Fallout.
Essentially, at this point, now, yeah.
What is it called? Fallout 20. We're leaving Vault 25.
Yeah.
There we go.
So these people have, at best, a kindergarten education. Because that was the level of education that the robots that would raise the kids could give them. That's about as far as they got.
Because they're supposed to get everything else.
And everything else was supposed to come from Apollo, which was knocked offline by Pharaoh.
Oh my God.
So these are the first humans. They would become the prototype for the Nora and a lot of the other tribes around the Sacred Lands and in nearby areas.
Now, there is evidence to suggest that when forced, and you're saying that some of these are young adults, when forced to be put in certain situations, your brain does kick in, and there are natural instincts that humans have figuring out nutrition and survival. So, it would not be pretty to see them try to survive. It's going to be hard. I'm afraid you're going to make me cry, but it's not impossible to think these people are going to live.
Yeah. So eventually, Cradle number 9 becomes the all-mother to the Nora, the source of all life in the world in their mythology.
And there's probably more than one cradle.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, this is Cradle number 9.
Right.
So, then we have another big stretch of nothing noted in the timeline until 2990, when Rost is born.
Wow. So it's essentially...
We're talking centuries and then centuries. Yeah.
So
the opening part of the game is late 30th, early 31st century.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And things are going great. There's societies.
Yeah. Proto-societies.
Things are about to go bad. Very, very bad again.
Let me guess. Are these monsters, these freaking monsters are coming back?
We also have time, actual timestamps. August 26th, 3020 at
Who
8.
knows that it's August anymore?
Well, now we're actually talking about stuff inside of a computer program.
Oh my! Oh, the computer thinks August is still a thing.
Oh,
Huh? That's really cute. It's
That's
been
fair.
a little. Nobody's making August happen anymore. August has been out of style since August of 2100.
So August 26th, 3020 at 8:45, I assume AM. A mysterious signal is sent to Gaia that causes her subordinate functions to become erratic and self-aware.
Pharaoh is at it again, isn't he?
Mysterious, actually. I do not believe this is Pharaoh.
Okay.
The subfunction Hades attempts to seize control of the terraforming system.
Uh-oh.
Gaia initiates a self-destruction of Gaia Prime's reactor to prevent Hades from gaining control. In hopes of being eventually rebuilt and rebooted, Gaia orders Cradle Number 9 to gestate a clone of genetic sample LK1A14510.
So back.
Meanwhile, machines under the control of Gaia lose command and control links and become more hostile. More dangerous and combat-oriented machines also begin appearing. April 4th, 3021 at 9:30, gestation of LK1A14510 finishes and Aloy is born, bringing us back to where we started.
I have a feeling that it's genetic material as Sobek because they figured a clone of a brain that was brilliant enough to get it is probably the closest we can get to being sure that we could teach somebody how to do all of this, which is not a smart plan in my opinion, but whatever.
Very broad strokes here. We are skipping a lot of Aloy's story to get to the end. There's a lot of going back and forth, finding out all of this information we just dumped. There's a lot of intertribal stuff. There's dealing with other tribes. We'll cover all that in another episode at some point.
But we're kind of here to cover basically the sci-fi world backbone that is part of Horizon.
But you kind of need at least Aloy's prologue, I think, to kind of build into that. Otherwise, it just feels weird to jump in when she's...
Yeah, I would say this is different than like our Half-Life episode was kind of like a prologue where you didn't need the main stories.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with the way that we did that. But this one, it makes sense that we kind of want to...
You want to have the character before you go into the backstory.
Well, because for Half-Life, there was a character. It was Caveman Johnson or whatever his name is.
Caveman Johnson is pretty good. Cave Johnson.
Cave Johnson. Sorry. That was an unintentional joke there. But yeah, so like you had a character, it was Cave Johnson.
Yeah.
He's kind of a caricature of what that world represents. Whereas this is much more of a personal story, and you need to know why Aloy's origins are important.
Yeah.
You know.
So, Aloy ends up fighting the rogue AI Hades and forces it to shut down using a master override she jams into it. Basically, this is an attachment to her spear, and it's weird. So when it deactivates, a shockwave throws her and ripples across the land as all the Pharaoh machines deactivate. That night, as her allies and friends celebrate, basically she's formed allies, she's found friends, she's found, rebuilt societies and stuff. So
it's very much a hero's journey tale. Like,
Aloy slips away and leaves on a Strider. Basically, she has the ability to control the machines.
I am one with the animals. And by animals, I mean the metal beasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are actual beasts.
Oh, I meant there has to be. Yeah.
Like at one point you have to get meat.
Right.
So, sometime after the final battle, Aloy made the journey to Nevada, finding Elizabeth Sobek's childhood home.
Oh my gosh.
There, Aloy found Sobek's body, still in her environmental suit, on a bench surrounded by a triangle of flowers.
Whoa.
She activated her focus, which is what she's had the whole time. I didn't want to call it a focus the whole time, because I kept calling it the arrow thing, which is a little clunky, but I think it works.
Right.
And saw a hologram of Sobek's face. She gently touched the suit's helmet with an expression of simultaneous grief and joy. She noticed a globe locket in Sobek's hand and took it. She gazed at it, held it to her heart, and looked up at the sky with a beatific smile. At last, she knew her mother.
Yeah, she was Sobek's clone.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like I saw that coming from a mile away. I'm
yeah,
sorry,
I kind of didn't really bury it, but I didn't want to be like, "You're right." So.
There's certain tropes that work really well, and I think when people like you and I who like to write for whether it's profession or for it's not my profession yet. I'd like to think it could be published someday, but like we know what those tropes are, and I think they were used well. I don't want to say that just because I could predict it. I don't think a predictable story is necessarily a bad story, but yeah, I could see it coming. I just
Yeah.
could, and it's still beautiful. I probably still would cry if I seen that happen. And also, it's a different reveal because what you put in the middle, like in the middle to end of this episode, all that history that explains why Aloy's world is so
Like, that's actually
different.
what surprised me. Like, usually when you have an apocalypse,
yeah.
you usually don't have everything dead. There's always pockets that survive. Here, the only person who survives to Aloy's time is Pharaoh, and he is
Not a person anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and I think
Like, literally, it is a restart of the entire biosphere of the Earth.
now, okay, side note, so the story's great. This is really well written. This is obviously
This is really well done for what I initially brushed off as a survival game with dinosaurs. You know, I thought it was like Ark, if you've seen that game.
Yeah,
Like,
I know what
yeah.
you're talking about. When I remember I saw a clip of it. When I realized that the beasts were robots, I was like, there's something that has to explain why this is. And I didn't realize it was going to be it's part of a reset program.
Yeah. I don't want to get too deep into this because I want to save it for another episode. But, like, the AI, like, Hades is worshipped by one of the tribes, I believe. So, like, these AIs are not just self-contained and just fighting, like, in the background. Like, they are still influencing the world
Yeah.
currently
Right.
and knowingly to the people. It's
Right.
just that the tribe you start with is intentionally isolationist and intentionally does not trust technology.
Right.
The other tribes see them as kind of backwards and primitive because they don't trust technology and because they're matriarchal. But yeah,
Well, yeah.
not that I agree with that standpoint, that viewpoint, obviously, but
Well, I can understand wanting some gender equality regardless of
yeah,
what direction it goes. But still, it could be that there was something that one of them read that kind of alluded to the whole like don't trust it thing.
yeah.
And then they just didn't have anything to complete that thought, so it became a whole belief structure.
Also, like, the Nora are the ones who traveled the least distance from Cradle 9.
Exactly.
Like, and I don't know where the other cradles are. It may be one of those things where they have just, you know, they can, unlike Fallout, which basically made it only in the U.S., like...
Well, it kind of has to with the way that they did their backstory, so...
I know, but I kind of want to know what's happening elsewhere in the world sometimes.
Well, I mean, if we want to see if there's bunkers in their version of 2079 China, I mean, sure, I'm sure that's really interesting. And I would hope if there was some Chinese game developer who wanted to do that, I'd be interested in playing that, you know, thought experiment.
Right.
But you're right. It is inherent, and it's inherently very U.S. because it's playing on old U.S.
Well, yeah,
fears.
it's yeah. So I'm curious if the other cradles in this game are kind of scattered around, so you could do different environments. You know, maybe Aloy's game, maybe Aloy's story is done after the second game, and they can do a separate protagonist for somewhere else in the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be probably it could be more small scale and interpersonal or
Well,
small scale
yeah.
and tribal, but it could still be a very
More-
interesting world building experience.
More localized, like they're dealing with a different AI, like maybe like there's something wrong with Poseidon and that like their fishing culture is dying and they have to try to revive it,
Right.
and it becomes a fetch quest situation. I mean, that's a Fallout game too. I mean, we've had plenty of great games that were based on these premises.
So how do you feel about playing this one?
I'm kind of excited. As much as I'm someone
Now-
I don't care that I had half of it spoiled for me because the journey sounds really interesting
Yeah.
too.
There's a lot of cutscenes at the beginning, so I don't know how much you're actually going to play in the first hour. So we'll see.
Yeah, because we're basically going to go through her childhood stuff. But thanks for listening to this really long deep dive into the backbone of the history of Horizon Zero Dawn. Like,
Yeah.
this is... I'm really excited to play this. These are the kind of games that I like to... It's a game that if it were a
Be
book...
prepared for Safi screaming when she's attacking dinosaurs. Ah!
I'm such a scaredy cat. If it's the kind of story where, like, if it was written as a book, I'd probably be into it.
Yeah.
This is really interesting, and then to have the sub story within the story,
Yeah.
it's just
And it's done really well. A lot of these, you get to see a lot of these scenes with Sobek and Pharaoh kind of play out because they're all holologs. they're all like security recordings and stuff that you can actually see because you have the thing on your head. But we
Yeah.
should probably call it here.
We should. Thanks so much for listening. This has been an awesome ride for me, and I hope it's been an awesome ride for you. And catch us when we do the play of it on Thursday. And wait, just so I don't forget to mention it, our alternate Thursdays.
It's going to be Skies of Arcadia for a little bit.
Skies of Arcadia. So we've been doing shorter indie games, but now we're going to shorten this, but it's going to be
We're going
longer.
to cheat. We're going to have infinite HP and stuff, but
and then try to make the battle shorter. But
we're there for cutscenes and story. We're not there for the ridiculously amount of random battles.
And yeah, and if you want to see how we've done this in the past, you can watch the last 2 games we did on our alternate Thursdays. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and
Abduction,
which very different games. So we're getting back to some classic JRPG stuff. I'm liking it.
Yeah.
I'm liking it. All right. We've talked enough. Thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.